Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Movie News. This is our special editorial, our review of Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim. We just got out of watching it. We're going to give you our thoughts, but let me give you this warning. We are going to talk about this movie like you, our friends, were there with us in the theater. That means we're going to talk spoilers. There are going to be spoilers in this review. So if you do not want to hear about any of the spoilers, then, just put this in your favorites list and come back and watch it later. So we're going to talk about this assuming you've seen it, all right? So when I say we, well, who am I talking about? First of all, AMC Movie News' own Miss Clark Wolf is here. Clark?
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good.
And also joining us, the one and the only Mr. John Schnepp.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Pacific Rim.
We're going to talk a little bit of Pacific Rim. So let's start with just our overall general impressions. Clark, let's start with you. What did you think of Pacific Rim?
Well, I don't know. Oh, my gosh. Well, look, if you can't tell by my grin from ear to ear to ear, I liked it. Oh, I loved it. I'm so happy. I feel like it's Rex Manning Day. I'm so happy right now. I'm not even going to talk for a full minute. That's all I have to say is that I loved it and I'm very happy.
Schnepp, your general thoughts of Pacific Rim. We just got out of it like 5 minutes ago.
Hands still shaking. Man, I hated that movie so much. Just kidding. Just kidding. It was awesome. I drank a Neural milkshake of awesome. It's called Pacific Rim. I was transported to like when I was 4 years old watching Godzilla fight King Kong, but also now as a full adult with amazing special effects, incredible sound design, and just some of the coolest fight sequences I've ever seen in my life. I mean, so happy and thrilled about this film. So.
Yeah, I thumbs up. I mean, I really enjoyed this film. It gave me everything I wanted to as far as the action and the geek side of me that just wants big giant robots fighting big giant monsters. I got that. I'm going to say this, and I'll get into more detail on this a little bit later. It was a little lighter on the narrative than what I'm used to from a Guillermo del Toro movie, but what was there was actually quite solid, too, to support this amazing visual spectacle at the same time. So I'm walking out extremely happy as well. So let's get into some details then. Now let's go into it here. Let's talk about the visuals. Because going into it, that's how this film has been marketed up to this point, is this giant spectacle. Giant robots fighting giant monsters. Clark, for you, how did it succeed? Did it fail in any way? What were your thoughts about just the visual spectacle of it?
I sincerely feel like I have never seen anything like this movie before. I mean, and I know we've all seen Transformers and we've all seen Godzilla and they're in the neighborhood, but the fight sequences and the fact that there are fight sequences on top of the ocean and then in the city and then under the ocean. I mean, and then in the atmosphere, for goodness sakes. It was the visuals, I think, were unbelievable. And also, I had read the major criticism I had read of Pacific Rim before I saw it was that it was shot too tight for some people, meaning that it was like too much, is like that cheat almost of being too close up. I really couldn't disagree more. I feel like we saw the monsters. Oh my gosh. The third shot of the movie is a monster. They do not make you wait. I thought I was blown away. I mean, I was absolutely blown away. I thought they did a beautiful job, and I wasn't disappointed at all. I think if they do a Pacific Rim 2, which I hope that they do, maybe the kaiju, instead of being sea-inspired creatures, could be another type of inspired creature, because they're clearly ocean-inspired, which I thought is awesome. But that's the only thing I would say is maybe next time they look a little different. But I mean, that's not a complaint. That's just a give me more, please, now.
Schnepp, what did you think about the giant robots versus the giant monsters and the visuals and all that kind of stuff?
You know what I mean? Like, we've all seen the commercials for Pacific Rim, multiple different versions of the commercials. How they've so you come in kind of feeling like, all right. Especially the first couple fight scenes, I felt like I've seen a lot of this already. And then once they break loose into the city, that's when I felt like the same kind of feeling that I felt when I was watching Avengers. Like the last half of Avengers, where everything's coming together and I'm watching something I've never seen before. I felt so happy and I didn't want it to end. Like it kept elevating and adding and becoming better. And there was a few of those right in the early beginning. I felt a little bit with that same kind of, it's a little bit too tight, or I'm not seeing the punches delivered the way I want. But then I realized it's like, I think it was like a ballet. It's like, it's this giant orchestral ballet, and it's like, here's a bunch of sequences shot this way. Now here's a bunch of sequences even shot larger. And then by the time you're seeing that ape monster, you going toe to toe, and they're just fighting and hammering at each other. My mind was exploding. And then we're in outer space, and literally in a theater we were in, people went off, started clapping during that one sequence. Because it was just, mind exploded. I had 2 neural links and 5 neural bridges all happening at the same time. I was connected with the rest of the audience. That's what I really felt like. I was like, we're all checking this stuff. I almost swore, guys. We're all seeing this together, and it was so fun. I mean, that's how I felt. Like a lot of the audience, like, you know, sometimes you go see a big event film, and some people are like, yeah, like, and then you're with them, or sometimes you're like, yeah, that guy's cheering, and I'm not with him yet.
Yeah.
I really felt like I was with everybody at that moment, you know?
I think one of the coolest things for me was that I was nervous, because we've seen a lot of these action films. A lot of directors have no idea what they're doing when it comes to action, because they think, oh, if I just make the camera really tight and shake the camera a lot like a monkey having a seizure, that means action, and that'll feel, and what it really is just, it feels like a cop-out, because it just means you're not showing me the action. I never once, you're right, they were a little tight at first, but then I realized, but you know what? Not once have I not felt like I know exactly what's happening. I know that punch is being thrown. I know who's punching it. I know why their whole chamber right now is shaking. I always knew what was happening in the action. And that's something so many of these large-scale action, even Transformers has been guilty of that a number of times, you know? Now, is the concept of giant robots fighting monsters completely original? No. I mean, there's a lot of Japanese anime that we get, like Grandizer. I don't know if you ever watched that one anime cartoon when we were kids. Grandizer, go! You know, stuff like that. So we've seen that, but it's so... We've never really seen this, though, on a big screen. We've never seen anything like this. And you know what I loved? What I was really kind of nervous about when I first saw, you know, that this movie was coming, is I thought they would go really ridiculous and have that the giant robots know kung fu. I thought, I really hope they don't start doing jumping, spinning back kicks and start doing, you know, wheelhouse kicks and, you know, all this type of stuff. No, it felt like the guys in the suit moving like this, that everything was kind of slow, but beautifully slow.
Very deliberate.
Like, that's how, like when he turns on the rockets.
Rocket punch,
it's like, bam, and bam. And it's like, it was all at that pace that felt very, I can't believe I'm going to use this word, realistic.
Yeah, it did.
When you say that, that's another thing. Like the fighting, that where you have there's the sense of peril. You have 2 people inside these robots fighting like giant monsters, and you feel like, wow, those people can get killed and crushed, because there's certain sequences where you see, like, you know, bones, like, or the monsters, you know, tusks going through, and like you see that, oh, well, they're actually in a robotic device that can get kind of crushed, so they have to, you know, use all their skill to fight off these creatures.
And they even move. I feel like the robots themselves moved like people in a way. I mean, I saw the way that it just. What am I trying to say? When the robot struts. Did you guys notice that? I was like, yes. This is so awesome. Because I think the thing is with the stuff, like, if you want to compare it to Transformers, those don't feel accessible. Like, when I was watching Pacific Rim, not to say that I think that Pacific Rim is coming in real life, but it made sense to me.
Yeah.
The armor made sense, and the robotics made sense, and it was practical. The hydraulics made sense. I mean, I really felt like I was able to very easily suspend my disbelief and believe that this was doable. Like, this was a thing.
Can we talk about the different styles of robots?
Yeah.
Like, I loved the Russian proletariat style. That's that figure I'm getting, yo. Hurry up and make that action figure, because I'm getting that. It's got the giant, like, cylindrical, weird, like, head, and it's got those big mallet hands. It was like, and even the 2 robotic, humans, the pilots, they had really badass, like, headgear. It was just like,
when I
really
looked
cool.
at both of them, the guy and the girl, I just thought, Yvonne Drago, #1, and Bridget Nielsen.
Yes.
That's
Totally.
Totally. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit now then about the narrative of the film. I'll start off with this one. The one thing, and let me get out of the way, the one part about the film that I wasn't really thrilled with, and that is, it felt a little Independence Day to me, because what you had Charlie Day playing the Jeff Goldblum character, figuring out the big master weakness. Let's fly a nuclear bomb into the heart of what their thing. Send in our two best to set off the nuclear thing,
Right.
and then get out before the nuclear
Right.
thing goes off. So, okay, we had kind of seen that. But I give that a pass because within the context of the film, that made sense. That worked. Now, we've seen let's just send a nuke to their home thing and blow it up. We saw that in Avengers. We saw that in Independence Day. Not the most original plot device.
Right.
Okay, I get that. But I'm able to get over it because, it, like I said before, it worked within the context of the film. One of the things I love most about how Guillermo and his writers dealt with this film was, I really love it when there's not one character who is the central character. This movie was never about Charlie Hunnam. It was never about Raleigh. It was never about his character named Raleigh. And by jumping from, because at one moment it feels like Charlie Hunnam's the key character, but then it kind of feels like Mako is the key character, and then it kind of feels like Idris Elba is actually the main character.
Right.
And by doing that, when you walk out of the film, you realize, no, actually the main character of the story was the conflict. The conflict, humanity versus whatever these things are, is what the central theme and character is. And we realize that by the way that the focus of the film never really went too much on one character. It stayed on what the overall context of the film was. And I really like that he did that, because the end of the world is not about one guy.
Right.
And that is one of the holes I feel like a lot of filmmakers could fall into. Anyway, Schnupp, when you look at the story of the film, aside from the giant robots fighting giant monsters, what were your impressions? What did you love about it? What were some things that maybe you would have improved upon, if any?
The one part that somewhere halfway through the movie that I started questioning, where I thought I need two brains to understand this. I started to feel was when they started talking about the rift. I still am a little confused. Now, is that a trans-dimensional rift? It seems
think
like that's
so.
what they're
Yeah, I
saying
think
it
that's what
is,
they're going for,
because
yeah.
they kept showing you go under, and it's not actually inside the Earth, but there's some kind of electrical charge.
Interdimensional. Yeah.
So those creatures really are aliens.
Yeah.
Remember, we're talking spoilers, guys. There's these little maggoty, weird insectoid dudes.
Skin ticks.
Yes, yeah, who are controlling the big super monsters, and they're throwing them at Earth so that almost they can just wipe out those guys, and then we'll jump up. It's almost like a terraforming thing using monsters.
Yeah.
So, but it took me a second to really get into that, because there's a couple of sequences, and John, you mentioned it earlier before the show. It looked like the Eye of Sauron. There's a few
Oh my
sequences
gosh,
where
yeah.
the main scientist comedy relief.
Charlie Day.
Charlie Day, kind of nervous nerd guys. Hang on a second, sweat glasses, weird, stammering, tripping, falling. But also pretty fun to watch. So
Yeah.
it was comedy relief that worked, and he neural handshakes with a monster, like a chunk of its brain, and then you get him crying in a corner, and you see a little bit of his life, and then they switch over to the monster's life, and
Yeah.
it being birthed, and skin screaming, and then these weird little alien creatures looking at him, and then you see an Eye of Sauron type thing,
Yeah.
which is all these they're in a Guillermo del Toro nightmare world, where you could just we're imagining him and then the flesh is slowly peeled off, and then you're inside of that, and they're floating on a chunk of Lovecraftian metal, and there's all this horror of an alternate universe of just monsters and evil, and that's where we end up going there, and that's another exciting part where I didn't expect that to happen. So there's some unexpected things that actually happen in the film as you're even as you're moving towards that ending where, we're going to have to go and set off the detonation device. It still happens in a way that was unexpected, I felt.
Yeah, you mentioned that Eye of Sauron thing. The first time that Charlie Day neural handshakes with the alien brain, you see this big alien world, and overseeing is this giant Eye of Sauron. And when we came into the office, I'm like, am I the only one who totally saw the Eye of Sauron? Is Sauron actually overseeing the overthrow of modern world? And then Clark pointed out, it's don't forget, Guillermo was working for a long time on The Hobbit, and maybe that having that eye in there is kind of his tip of the cap to the Lord of the Rings world. And all of a sudden I was like, now it doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
Now that totally makes sense to me. Anyway, we're talking about the narrative now, Clark. Some of your thoughts on the narrative and the story. Of the film.
I agree with what both of you said. We've seen the general narrative before. Even when especially when they're in like Fight Academy, I was like, ooh, this is a little Top Gun action happening here. We've got Iceman and we've got Maverick.
That's totally what I saw. The dude was Iceman.
He's
totally
Iceman. He's totally Iceman, and except he doesn't bite him like that. But anyway, that would have been cool. But okay, so we'd seen that before. It felt like Independence Day and a lot of it. Even at the end when they go in and you see the little aliens, it's like almost
they look like
the
they looked
Independence
a little bit
Day
like
aliens.
Independence Day.
So I mean, whatever. Who cares?
At least they didn't have a floppy disk.
Yes.
Here, insert that into that, Jeff Goldblum. Insert that into your mouth. Yeah,
How awesome
it's
would that
working.
have
Ching, 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 ching.
That
Yeah,
would have
like
been great.
processing.
And Will Smith was not there. Spoiler
Yeah.
alert. He didn't. He wasn't. There was no Will Smith cameo. I'm sorry, but that was super cool. But on what you were saying about this like crazy Del Toro nightmare thing, I really loved how this movie. First of all, this movie is a really palatable movie, I'd say. I don't see this movie alienating any audience member.
No,
like, I sincerely feel like if you enjoy summer blockbusters, period, you would love this movie. I really believe that. Now, that being said, Guillermo del Toro is one of my favorite people ever, really, especially in entertainment. I am such a fan of his, and I've watched a lot of his work. And anyway, the point I'm making is, this is very Guillermo del Toro. The scene where the alien baby gets birthed and all the afterbirth goes
Del
everywhere,
Toro.
and then the baby gets choked out by its own umbilical cord. I was like, Guillermo, I love you. Oh, there you are. You're crazy, and I love you. So even for a summer blockbuster that is totally for, I'd say, all audiences, it's still Guillermo del Toro, and that to me is really cool.
Yeah, and let's talk about this part of the film for a second, because we've mentioned Charlie Day, and of course Clay from Sons of Anarchy, of course being played by Hellboy, Ron Perlman. They kind of provide the I'm not going to call it the comedy relief. I'll call it the comedy breaths, because every once in a while in these types of films you need to take a breath, and comedy is a good way to do that. Charlie Day, I at first did not like the casting of Charlie Day in this. I like Charlie Day very much, but I kind of thought he might have been a little too silly. I found, though, he was actually just the right flavor for it. And Ron Perlman's character as Hannibal, what was his last name?
Chow.
Hannibal Chow.
His favorite character in literature and his favorite restaurant.
And his favorite Chinese
In
restaurant up the
Brooklyn.
street. In Brooklyn,
That's
that's it. And you know what? I found that they were actually just the right seasoning. It felt good. My one complaint is that I think they actually should have cut to them a little bit more in the film. I think we needed a few more of the comedic breaths, because sometimes it felt like the heaviness of it, because we're talking about the end of the world, so obviously there's this feeling of heaviness, and it should be there. But sometimes the heaviness went a little bit too long, and it started to get, I felt it was starting to weigh down a bit, and then it would get refreshed by these little comedic breaths. And I kind of felt like maybe there just should have been a couple more of those comedic breaths, because I thought they worked so well.
I agree, and not even comedic breaths, but just to see the world that was built.
Yeah.
Like, just to be able to see that restaurant that was built on a kaiju skull.
That was so
like
cool.
That's what I like. Those little moments where I just want to watch them, like the secondary market of what they do when they break apart a kaiju body. You see these people like cleaning it out, and you're like, oh, they're picking off these little weird critters. Oh, those survive in ammonia, or like whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like these little things, and then we go right back to the here. There's some more monsters, but believe me, by the time they're ready to have the monsters, I was ready. You know what I mean? So it is a really good balance, but there's a lot there. So I mean, it's a world that I'm really interested in exploring. I'm going to buy the art book, so just to check out all the stuff that they designed for this. I thought the monsters were really cool.
They were awesome. But on the Charlie Day thing, there were times during the movie where I actually found myself wanting more from that story. Like I know it was not the A storyline, but I was still very compelled by Charlie Day's character story because he is essentially unraveling the mystery, and that's kind of cool. So I enjoyed watching the process of that. And of course, he's one of the only characters that interacts with Ron Perlman's character. So them together, especially the physical presence of the two of them together was
guys, don't leave because there's a secret ending.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is.
Or it's like in the middle of the credits.
Yeah, we won't. I mean, I said spoilers, but we won't give that one away.
But just stick around.
Stick around to the middle of the credits.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a couple things about design. I think one of the pieces of brilliance in all the Guillermo del Toro films, artistically, is his incredible sense of importance in small details. Like everything from Ron Perlman's shoes. Like those were so cool. Who else would think to just, hey, let's do this? Because that stuck with me coming out. Just something as cool as that. Or even Ron Perlman's butterfly knife. Or, there's a lot of different things throughout the film that are just like, you could have just easily overlooked that.
Yep.
But he put something really cool and interesting in there that you might have even missed. And I love the fact that he does that.
I noticed Idris Elba, when he was walking at the end, once he put on his armor, he sounded like a cowboy. They gave him the spurs.
Oh,
and because then I looked at his shoes. He's got these like metallic, foot things on. Whatever. There's no spurs. But then when he was walking around, they gave him that like badass like, the sheriff's back when he put that outfit on. He's like kind of walking around. So I thought the little sound design moments, especially stuff that gave me like a little kid gurgle, was like every time a monster screamed out, or every time they almost had that Toho Studios like dun 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 dun. Like I don't know who did the music, but they did a really good job.
Music was amazing
at like rocking in that kind of like giant monster, like a monster's attacking, and then all of a sudden they had like this rousing kind of orchestral music mixed in with metal.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't like the music.
No? Oh, I
didn't like the music of the film. I don't know why. To me, it just never felt like. And I first really noticed it very early when Charlie Hunnam and his brother were getting loaded up in the Jaeger at the beginning. They played that kind of mix between synthy and rock music, and I'm like, nah, this isn't doing it for me. Especially coming out of a movie like Man of Steel, where I thought the score was so completely riveting. The music didn't really do it for me personally in this one. But you guys loved it a lot.
I liked it.
It got me.
I especially like the monster riffs.
Right.
Like whatever those were. They changed. The music changed quite a bit, and like it really felt like I was like they were like honoring the giant monster movies of the past, but with a new flavor.
I feel like you also saw every single dollar of this movie on the screen. And I mean that in a good way, because I felt like I watched a spectacle. I mean, I felt like I really got something amazing. And I'm not using the word amazing like girls use. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I was amazed by what I watched for the last 2 hours. And speaking of detail, the scuffs on the armor and the way that, I mean, just every piece in this movie, it's such an attention to detail, and it's such a complete package. I mean, it's just such a complete package. Pacific Rim is.
I love that sequence when the gorilla monster. You know how they all had different kind of the one that was more gorilla-ish. So like doing that. Running, and then the big robot, they're like, let's get him, and then they start running at him and does a jumping punch that they have in the trailer, but in the movie it's just so badass.
The ship, that was my favorite.
That was because you could very easily, because there's so much action and the camera focuses on the action going on. I found that when they brought that ship in, I realized, you can lose your sense of scale in this, and then all of a sudden they bring in he's carrying an oil tank as a bat. It's like, okay, now it reestablished my sense of the scale. You know, one of the things I love that this movie did, it's almost like beauty by omission. I talk a lot about the Edward Norton Hulk film, that, hey, because I'm not really big on origin stories, especially on reboots. It's like we don't get to the stuff that we want, right? And the Ed Norton Hulk film was just the entire origin story was told in a 1-minute opening credit sequence,
Yeah.
and then they get in the movie. And in this, they could have spent a half hour on, oh my gosh, a monster's coming out of the sea. What are we going to do? And how the Jaegers came to be. They could have spent a half hour, 45 minutes on that. What do? 5-minute explanation.
Yeah.
Hey, and they did it in not in a narrative way, but a very
Like a
didactic
newsreel,
kind of way. It's
yeah.
like, so this is what happened. Monsters came out. We created the Jaegers. We all good?
Yeah.
Start
That's
the movie.
all you need to
Monster
know.
battle,
That's
yeah.
Love
all
that
you
Del
need
Toro.
to know.
Del Toro knows what we wanted to see, and he gave it to us.
Yeah.
And I love that he opened the movie that way.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, and we'll kind of start to round up everything here. You guys kind of playfully mention, if they do a sequel, blah blah blah. The movie kind of puts a big period on the end, like to me. But I mean, money talks, all this kind of stuff. Let's ignore the issues about how Pacific Rim is tracking and all that kind of nonsense. What would you think would be the chances of them even wanting to? Because I get the feeling, watching this film and how it ends, that I felt Del Toro put a period on it and isn't intending on returning to it. Then again, I would have felt the same way about the end of Independence Day. And look, we have 2 more Independence Day films coming. So that being said, Clark, let's start with you. What would you actually think would be the chances of, money aside, of a Pacific Rim 2?
I think that Del Toro he has a lot. He talks a lot about projects he'd like to do. We all know that about Guillermo del Toro. But I think that it's an interdimensional portal. Therefore, what is on the other side of the portal? What else is in the other dimension? What's in any other dimension that we haven't accessed yet? I think that there are definitely ways to come up with new monsters and new things or other kaijus or whatever we want to call it. But I don't know if I necessarily want to... I'd go see another Pacific Rim. It was fantastic. It was great, but I don't know if I necessarily need another one. I feel like I agree with you. I think they put a nice little. They closed it up pretty well. Also, the Earth kind of got demolished. So I don't know what kind of resources we're working with here. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be funny. I seriously don't know how because all the Jaegers seem to get pretty pulverized, so they'd literally have to start all over after World Destruction. I don't know how we'd get another Jaeger. I don't know, but I'd see it, but I don't know if we're headed that way, even creatively. Forget about finances. So I don't know, but I'd go see it.
Where were you, Schnapp?
I want everyone to see Pacific Rim. Because this is the movie to see if you like monsters and robots and you like giant action,
awesomeness,
and you like 2 hours of awesomeness, then see this movie. I'm not worried about a sequel. If it makes the money that it needs to make a sequel, that's awesome. But I would like everyone to just see this movie and not even I'm not even thinking about. You're right. I think they button it. They put it's like if you really need to make a sequel, it's there because they didn't kill all of the aliens, or it's another universe. So maybe a portal opens on the moon. Moon Rim. Moon Fuzz, the new Guillermo del Toro movie, and it's like weird Muppets coming out of the moon. Like giant floating Muppets. But yeah, you know what? This is one of those movies that, when it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm buying it. I want to know all about it. I want to have the Russian monster and the weird ape creature, the Russian robot and the ape monster, maybe even the flying one. I don't know. And plus the one towards the end, the super giant one.
Yeah.
That's really badass. The design is really cool. A sequel, sure, why not? If they made a sequel and it came out in 8 years, which is what it would take, because Guillermo del Toro is he's next to me, he's making Crimson Peak, then he's making some other film, and that's 3 years, and he's got to make Justice League Dark. Get on it, son. You know what I mean? It's he's pretty busy, so even if Pacific Rim 2 came out, it'd probably be Guillermo del Toro presents, and then it'd be one of his dudes making it, It was not that it would suck or anything, but look, we got Pacific Rim. It just came out. I just want everyone I'm going to see that a second and maybe third time.
Yeah.
And that's my sequel. You know what I mean? The sequel is just enjoying this movie again and seeing all the flavor that it's packed with. That's kind of I'm looking forward to. I just saw it literally an hour ago, and I can't wait to see it again. because I mean it's really that kind of an exciting film. So
See, I think if they were going to do, the only way I would get really excited about a sequel, because I do think they put such a period on this, is up the scale. Okay, so humanity knows that, okay, we may have closed that rift, but something else may come through. So in 5 years, they build like 60 more Jaegers. And instead of just a skinny little portal, now the aliens have invented a really big portal. And now you've got like 100, kaiju come through at once, and this like an army of like 60 Jaegers, and boom. You do that, 75-minute fight.
Right.
Maybe.
No, you have to up that battle.
Yeah, you have to up that
just
scale.
like have them all. I'm going back to the moon, guys. Like have like a giant battle that takes place on the moon where you can actually watch like on one side like 50 giant robots running, and then on the other side 50 monsters all coming to attack. The moon is destroyed, ladies and gentlemen. It's broken in half by robots versus monsters.
All right, so let's wrap this up here. Clark, let's start with you. Closing quick thoughts with a score out of 10.
Closing quick thoughts are: this is the summer. This is a definitive summer blockbuster for, I think, summers to come. I think the content of this movie is so good, and it's a darn shame that it wasn't sold properly, but we don't know what's going to happen yet because it's only Thursday night as we're taping this. But boy, to me, this movie works. It just works. And I love Guillermo del Toro, and I love him even more after this. And I'd give it probably a 9 out of 10.
Okay, Schnepp?
It's one of the best summer films that's come out in 2013. It's in my top 5. I'm not going to say what my top 5 are right now, but Pacific Rim is in it. It's floating around there. It's, in that whole zone of awesomeness. I would totally give it a 9. Out of a 9 out of 10. A few little quabbles about some of the, neural linkage and some of the, a few slow moments that I wanted. It's like, hey, look, if, I could trim 1 minute, I would do it. But I don't know which minute I would do. Like, which note did you not prefer? I don't know. I mean, was it perfect? No. Was it incredibly fun to watch? Yes. And I can't wait to see it again. So, yeah, 9 out of 10. And go see it. Rush to go see it. That's what I would say.
I'll put it in my top 3 films of the summer. I still have Man of Steel in my number 1 spot, but that's me. But I definitely have it in my top 3. Really enjoyed. This is, for a summer blockbuster, this is a film that does not disappoint. Would I have liked to have seen a little bit more narrative in it? Yeah, but the narrative that was there was really good. Was I a little bit thrown off by the similarities to Independence Day? I was, but then I kind of forgive that because it makes sense in the context of the film. So overall for me, I'm going to give it a solid 8. I'm going to give it an 8. So we got 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Either way you add that up, whatever your math skills are, that's pretty good.
That's right.
So, hey, listen, folks, but look, we're going to do this just for fun. We've got a few of these collector little posters coming out of the IMAX screening that we just did of a kaiju fighting a Jaeger. So what we're going to do is Clark and Schnepp and I are going to autograph these, and then we're going to send them out to some of you. And here's how you can get your hands on one of these. Email us at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. In the subject line, put Pacific Rim. So email us at amcmovietalk@gmail.com, and in the subject line, put Pacific Rim. And what do you have to email us? Email us a picture of you holding your AMC tickets to seeing Pacific Rim. So what you're going to do, send those to us. We're going to pick 3 at random, and we will send you out one of these collector posters with Schnepp, Clark, and I signing them. Why you want our signatures on them, I don't know, but people have asked for it before, so that's what we're going to do.
I'm going to draw a baby kaiju on one of them. Yeah.
So that will do it for us, folks. Hey, listen. Head on over to amctheaters.com right now. You can get your tickets right now for Pacific Rim. Get our theater and showtime information as well. You can find all the info there. Just head over there and you know what to do. I want to thank Ms. Clark Wolf. Clark, thank you for being here.
Thank you, John.
The one and the only Mr. John Schnepp. Thanks a lot for being here, John.
Pacific Rim. Oh, I wanted to. Clark and John and me, we all saw the movie as well as with Dennis. Who's over there.
Dennis
Throw your 2 cents into the mix, yo. What'd you think?
It was awesome.
Dennis liked it, and if Dennis likes it, that means you're going to like
Yeah,
it too.
you're gonna like it.
So, hey, folks, thanks a lot for joining us. Don't forget to join us every day, Monday through Friday, on our AMC Movie News YouTube channel for AMC Movie Talk, where we give you all the latest movie news with insight into what it all means. And as well, on Saturdays and Sundays, we have our AMC Mailbag, taking your mailbag questions. So thanks again for joining us, guys. This has been our special editorial review for Pacific Rim. Until next time, my name's John Campia. Bye-bye.